Hi there, I'm FabulousReindeer, and if you're watching this, you probably got here with a link in the description of that commercial I made. Sorry for that. Anyway, the text above the link said, click this video if you've beaten the game. So if you're here, that kind of implies that you did. And if you didn't, don't watch this video. This game is much better if you experience it all firsthand and blind. And if you're still gonna watch the video, even though you haven't played the game, well, I did warn you. Alright, this video isn't going to be all spoilers. I'll start off with some lighthearted stuff, and every now and then I'll turn up the spoiler levels a bit higher. Don't worry, I'll warn you when it happens. Deal? Wait, of course it's a deal. It's my video. It's not up for negotiation. But again, if you want to go in blind, which you should, don't watch this video. Let's first get into the gameplay. As the title suggests, it's an RPG. You do standard RPG stuff. Fight enemies, become stronger, repeat. But Lisa does a few things different. Some characters use double ASD chains to attack. The buttons are each their own attack, and by using specific combinations, special moves can be executed. These can also be executed by simply selecting them in the skill list, but each time you press a button, you do damage, so why should you? The game also barely has any random encounters. Almost all of the fights are unique, and the level curve is structured so that grinding isn't necessary anyway. Honestly, this is an amazing design choice, and I'm surprised there aren't more RPGs that do it. Grinding isn't fun. You're doing the same thing over and over again for long amounts of time, just to artificially lengthen the game. Why do that if you could just continue on your journey? There's also a huge amount of party members you can recruit, each with their own personality and fighting style. This gives the game a lot of replay value, and it's fun to customize your team throughout your journey. Here's a useful tip. See this guy? His name is Birdie. Do him and yourself a favor and get him a drink. I am not kidding when I say that Birdie may be the best party member in the game. First of all, he has a move that heals your entire party by a pretty big amount. He can also cure status effects for singular allies, but his best technique has to be Gasoline Spit. This move gives enemies the oiled up condition, which makes them extra vulnerable to fire. Given that Brad can shoot fireballs and that there are a lot of explosive items like firebombs, you can absolutely wreck things with this guy in your team. Speaking of team, it's not a bad idea to change your team often to suit different enemies, mainly for the difference in numbers. If you're fighting a lot of people at once, get a bunch of guys that can hit multiple targets. If you're fighting only one guy, get people that can inflict status effects like burning and poison. Now, I should be getting into the story, but I just really shouldn't just yet, so instead I'll talk about the fun stuff that happens throughout the game. Lisa is full of black comedy. No, there's no Hannibal Buress cameos. I mean situations like this. Whoopsie-doo, accidentally set all these orphans on fire, my bad. At one point, you ride a motorbike across some cliffs, and you get experience by running people over. You can find a random guy lying on the ground, and you just kill him for no reason, to which he responds, "What did I do wrong?" You can fulfill every hardcore Nintendo fan's dream of violently murdering Jim Sterling and changing your name to Sexy Boy for the rest of the game. At one point you find a house, but the furniture is guys, and then when you go into a room and... No. That can't be. No. Now there's not much to talk about anymore without mentioning the story. Again, if you haven't played Lisa yet, leave. I cannot stress this enough. Play this game blind. It's so much better if you do. In fact, me implying that being spoiled for this game is the worst is already kind of ruining the experience for you. But then again, I did warn you. After playing the game, you have learned that behind this facade of simple graphics and frequent skits of black comedy lies a dark, twisted, and depressing experience that may very well be considered a psychological horror. Lisa doesn't fuck around. And you realize this in the first few minutes of the game. Lisa the Painful RPG begins with a young Brad and his friends being beat up. After this beating, Brad heads home. His house is a decrepit dump of a place with broken windows and boarding. His family isn't much better. His father verbally and physically abuses him. Brad heads upstairs and presumably cries himself to sleep. Cut to 35 years later. Things, look different. The apocalypse happened, the world is now a wasteland, and all the women have died. At least, almost all women. Brad finds a baby lying on the ground somewhere. He takes it to his friends, and they discover that it is in fact a girl. What follows is a cutscene of Brad and his friends raising this girl. It doesn't go all that well. Brad is addicted to a drug called joy, which makes you feel nothing. But he tries. He tries so hard to stay off those blue pills, but his past keeps on haunting him, and he ultimately fails. This cutscene is heart-wrenching, and it all happens before you even start playing the game, which is great because that way the game really grabs you from the beginning. Anyway, the cutscene ends with a washed-up Brad waking up to a dog's barking. The dog is attacking a guy named Terry. After defeating the dog, you recruit Terry. Terry is basically useless. As Brad heads back to his house, he finds the area covered in corpses and blood. Secret's out, Brad. She's gone. This is where the game truly begins. Alright, game introduction. Technically not that much of a spoiler, except if you want to go blind, like you should. But now we're going to get into the real meat of the story. Once again, if you haven't played Lisa yet, this is your cue to leave. Lisa's storytelling can be downright schizophrenic at times. At one point, Brad's building up muscle in a cave where there's music that samples Duelin's grunt from Shenmue 2. Minutes later, he's having flashbacks of his drug abuse in his earlier life and has hallucinations of his abusive dad. Then he enters prostitution. It's like if one clown throws a pie in the other clown's face and then stabs him. That's just how Lisa is, and it's amazing. There's just a lot of great thematic details about Lisa's story that makes it so interesting. Like how history is kind of repeating. As the game takes place, Brad's goal is to protect Buddy from the rest of the world, who will most likely hurt and or rape her. But his addictions make him unsuitable for that, and in the end are what made him hurt Buddy the most. During the time he still lived with his father, Brad's goal was to protect his sister Lisa from, well, his father, who wanted to hurt and rape her. But he was too young and weak, and one of the epilogues seems to imply that Marty once made Brad drunk and made him join him in raping Lisa. Also worth noting is how two things that came out of Marty's abuse, Brad's addiction and his need to redeem himself, just royally fuck each other over. Brad cannot be a good father to Buddy, because of his joy addiction. He also can't get rid of this addiction because Buddy reminds him too much of Lisa, and probably because the PTSD itself is already too hard on him overall. That also brings us to the fact that Brad is just doomed to fail. Throughout the game you make choices. Choices like lose an arm or lose a teammate. This affects the gameplay directly instead of affecting the ending. Yes, instead of. When it comes to this game's ending, your choices don't matter at all. The damage has already been done by the joy pills, no matter how much you stay off of them in-game. Throughout the game, Brad has violent outbursts. He viciously beats the man whom he used to consider his friend. There's no other way out. He takes his father's life, no matter the decision you make, because this isn't your decision. It isn't even Brad's decision. It's the joy, slowly but surely destroying his mind, all the way up to the point where he becomes a mutant, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's why I wanted everyone to go into this game blind, because the story is just that depressingly amazing. It truly lives up to the name as a painful RPG, and we're all fucking masochists.